morning, boys and girls. You're all welcome to the latest edition of the Trinity Tims. I could say it's a very happy edition, but a 2-2 draw wasn't exactly the best result that we were looking for. I think it played more into Hearts' hand and Motherwell's than it did ours on the Ibrox side. But as usual this evening, we'll get into that. As usual this evening, I'm joined by Joe McHugh, my colleagues from Video Cells, and James from the Celtic blog. Welcome as usual, guys. A lot to talk about, a big agenda to get through. And obviously, first and foremost, we'll start with the game at Ibrox yesterday, which was very much the epitome of a game of two halves. So it started with us being totally overrun by the Ibrox side in the first half. We cannot deny that there was a decent bit of skill there from Yusuf Chermiti to score the first goal with the overhead kick. But there's no way that they can claim it as the best derby goal of all time. Not a hope. Even if you're talking about the Nakamura 40-yarder back in 2008 or the Larson chip back in 2001, there's, that was a good overhead kick, good solid overhead kick, but definitely not the best of all time. In terms of the game, as I said itself, it was a game of two halves. We were totally pulverized in the first half. I thought that the selection was a little bit iffy to begin with. I think that the Ox was overwhelmed by the whole occasion, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. I'm just seeing nothing in Junior Adamu thus far. He, I don't know whether it was a tactic of just to lump balls up to him and hit and hope or what, but it doesn't seem that he is capable of running the front line on his own, or nobody's getting any service to him anyway. But that again goes back to the midfield that we had, and it wasn't great. But overall, what we did in the second half in comparison to the first half was outstanding. We should and could have won the game in the second half with 16 attempts on goal. We totally overran them from within 5 minutes. They came out alright, all guns blazing in the first 5 minutes of the second half, but we should have overrun them after that. We could have scored 3 or 4 the way that we played. There was no disputing the penalty. I know that John Beaton was gutted, absolutely gutted. You could see that he was near close to tears when he was looking at the VAR screen. And it took a good, solid Celtic man in Kieran Tierney to score the goal to get us back into the game. So overall, it was for us, I feel, a psychological boost to come back from 2-0 down and draw 2-2. They bottled it in the second half. They have now dropped 6 points in their last 4 fixtures, other than, besides the win from, when they beat Hearts. So, we've dropped 5 points in the last 2 fixtures, but somehow we now have the opportunity to go ahead of them on Wednesday against Aberdeen. So, firstly, I'll go to James to get his opinion on yesterday's game at Ibrox and see how he took it in and how he felt about it. Would you be inclined to agree, James, that it's definitely a result that favours Hearts and gets Motherwell into the mix somewhat as well? But I think Derek McInnes will be the most happy out of all the top 3 managers with that result. What do you reckon?
It's hard to argue with that, but I might try. It's one of the games that made me incredibly glad that I went grey in my 20s, because that would have turned my hair grey in one afternoon. And coming on the back of the Kilmarnock game a couple of weeks ago, I don't know how some of us are getting through this season with heavy-duty medication. There was a certain inevitability about the second goal once we scored the first one, because the second half performance was everything the first half performance was not. I said to my mate just before they scored the first goal, we have not shown up. Where are we? What are we waiting for? And then they scored. And then they scored again. And apparently that's what we were waiting for. Luke McCowan got in a bit of trouble with his comments that said that when we show up, we're the best team in Scotland. Well, that second half was us showing up. And we proved we're the best team in Scotland. I don't care how much Danny Rowe and other people want to greet about it. That was the Celtic that we all know were capable of being, and we blew them off the park in the second half. It was exceptional. I was glad that I wrote that piece a week ago about Hatate and Maeda still having a role to play. Maeda should have scored a couple. His header is going in the net until it hits Sterling in the hand and bounces after the goalkeeper. Hatate, I thought, was tremendous when he came on, and he deserved his goal. I'm glad that the game wasn't going to be remembered for a 2-1 loss in his penalty miss, because it would have been grossly unfair to him. And he did brilliant. He put the ball in the net at the third attempt. I think it's a great result for us. I think that it will scare the living shit out of our hearts, because had the Ibrox club beat us yesterday, we're out of the title race and we're Hearts' biggest problem, and they know we're their biggest problem. So although they got the boost yesterday, they got the bump to go on ahead of both teams, the idea that we came back to 2-0 down at Ibrox will scare the bejesus out of them when they're actually thinking about it soberly. If we win at the midweek, we're 5 points behind them, which basically is one bad afternoon, and then they'll go to come to Celtic Park, and I don't think they'll look forward to that. We need to keep winning for sure, but every team, 83 has got points to drop yet, and it's just about who keeps their nerve, and we've shown an unrelenting capacity for how we perform under fire. It's a good result that would have been an exceptional result had we beat Hibs. I'm gutted about the Hibs result. That's one that's going to be hard to live with at the end of the season if we've not won it. If we lose it by a single point or something, that'll be the game that all eyes will focus on. It's been the one we should have won. But this Hearts team has had multiple moments where they might have shaken us off completely, and we're still alive. And they must hate that as much as the Ibrox club must hate it. I think this was the toughest away fixtures that we have left. And coming in the back of a European away game, the script was written for us to have a really bad afternoon, and we had a really bad first 45 minutes and then turned it. It was amazing. I thought it was excellent, but they didn't sign up. And as for Tom English's comments this morning were absolutely preposterous. Not just the best goal in the derby, but possibly the best goal in Scottish football history. Oh, fuck off, mate. Absolutely idiotic. Right, just at the top of my head, I came up with two straight away that are better. Both our goals, both against them. But Nakamura's 40-yard pile driver will never be topped for me. It is the most perfect execution of a long-distance shot I've ever seen. And the back angle is actually my favourite angle, the angle to the back of Nakamura. Because you see the way the ball swerves one way and then the other way. Two goalkeepers will not have stopped that. And that's the best derby goal of all time. There's no one's going to beat that unless they can do what he did that day. And nobody can do what he did that day.
Yeah, I'd definitely be inclined to agree with that. James, can you just check your sound there? You're sounding very blurred. It might be that you have the wrong connection. Can you see if it's connected to your main mic? Before I go over to Joe. Joe, do you feel after coming back from 2-0 down in that game yesterday that now gives us a bit of a psychological edge going into the cup game next weekend? Because even though we were kind of overrun in the first half, we now we saw the key to unlocking them in the second half. And obviously O'Neill and Sean Maloney and the guys will have learned something from that, and they will probably set up to be a bit more aggressive in the cup game. And in a cup game, obviously, I know it's a different scenario. You're not playing for points. You're playing for it's a knockout tie. So you have to, I suppose, go hell for leather in that. But do you feel that it's given us a psychological edge going into that game now, that they will kind of be running scared after the performance that we had in the second half?
It's glass half full, glass half empty.
As usual.
Yeah, we get some sort of boost from it, because at half time we were dead and buried and they were champions of Scotland and they were halfway through their Champions League campaign next season. So we've emerged from it better. They've taken a hell of a blow. The reaction to their manager at the final whistle, he was going round clapping them. I'm not sure. Sky could have done us a favour and given us some close-ups of the reactions to him, to their brilliant German manager. So they've taken a hell of a blow. We get some sort of boost, but that boost only lasts until Wednesday, and this Celtic team is still very fragile. No one can guarantee that we're going to win at Aberdeen. We should win. Aberdeen have got a cup tie at the weekend, which will be their priority. Aberdeen aren't going to make the top 6. I think they're 12 points behind Falkirk. That's not going to happen over the remaining games. But you can't really take any form. I mean, if anyone's betting on the SPFL Premiership this season, they're as well just throwing their money out the window. There's no form you can take. Anything.
I see the bookies have Motherwell at 12-1 now.
Yeah. Motherwell get 10 games left. They've got 2 against us and 2 against Hearts. Motherwell, they're not. I don't think they're going to win the league, but second or third isn't out with possibilities. You can say that for most of the teams. They can finish anywhere between first and fourth. And again, anyone, if you could tip the top 4 at this stage, you must have something. You must have an inside track on what's going on, because there's nothing predictable. There's nothing that you can say for certain. If we beat Aberdeen and then beat Motherwell, then we'll be 2 points behind Hearts when they play their next match, which is an 8 o'clock kickoff away to Kilmarnock. Who knows what Kilmarnock are capable of? It's a plastic pitch, etc. But there's nothing that can be read into it. They have taken a massive psychological blow. They never ever learn, and hopefully never ever learn. It takes virtually nothing to get them excited. We all enjoyed Phil Clement's lap of honour 2 years ago. And that occasion, we were 2-0 up and chucked it away to get a draw, although it was at Ibrox, which makes a difference. This time, they were 2-0 up, going on 10-0. We all witnessed the greatest goal in the history of mankind, etc., etc. The most dominant first-half display ever in a Glasgow derby, etc. Everything was fantastic. But unfortunately for them, the game lasts 90 minutes. A season lasts 38 games. We're still in it, but no one can say with any confidence. I can say with fair confidence, I can't see Celtic winning their 10 remaining matches. If they can win 9, if they can win 8 and draw 2, that might be enough. But we're still sitting on 7 defeats so far this season. So to win 80% of our remaining games is going to be a hell of an ask. So we're still in there. They took, I'll say it again, they took a massive blow. They're 6 points behind Hearts. They have to go to Celtic Park, Tynecastle, and one other away match after the split. So their cockiness has been put back in place. But if they beat St Mirren in their next league match, they'll be champions-elect again. So it's up to us. Well, all 3 teams can say if we win our games, we win the league. That's a bit of a stretch for the Ibrox mob. They can't technically say that, but if anyone was to take full points, it'd be highly unlikely that they're going to finish second. So fingers crossed that we can get the result at Aberdeen, take a boost to Ibrox on Sunday. The fact that we'll have an extra 6,000 supporters and they'll have 40,000 angry bears that are paying £53 rather than getting this the season ticket. Those set of factors come into play. Hopefully, we can start better in the Scottish Cup than we did in the SPFL match. And surely Martin O'Neill's... I mean, one of the things, the Celtic forward line, we really must drop this 4-3-3. We do not have 2 functioning wingers. We don't have 2 wingers that can play 90. Tunetki came on and we got a great 45 minutes. Forrest came on, we got a great 10 minutes. But Yang and Maeda in the first half and various others were well short of it. So if Negren's an advanced midfield or a withdrawn striker in a 4-4-2, I'll go with that. But 4-3-3, we've tried it and tried it and tried it. All different managers have been saying, change it. But surely Martin O'Neill has realised that we just don't have the wingers. So shore something up. Get a formidable midfield 4 together. Bring the Ox back into contention. He's not ready to start next Sunday's game at Ibrox, but he could have a Hatate-like influence in the second half or later on. But we're still fighting, and that other mob, they took a right sore one. So all good.
Yeah, it does appear that they just they don't seem to have the battle for a full 90 minutes. It appears that they don't have the battle to compete, and I mean that's very much being visible in the last like, okay, they turned it on against Hearts, but if you look at the other results outside of that, I mean the Livingston game, the Motherwell game, where they were really kind of torn asunder by Motherwell in that game, and then you look at yesterday, they just seem to battle the big games, I suppose, outside of the Hearts one. And I mean, when you look, they're coming off the back of drawing 2-2 at Livingston. You probably would have expected that you'd see, if we started playing right, that you'd see some fragility there. And we definitely saw that in the second half. It just took 2 changes, and that was it. We were just a completely different team in the second half, which will brings me into my second part of the agenda for this evening, the refereeing performance. As such, I suppose in the first half, Beaton had no influence whatsoever over the game because nothing really happened in the first half that he could influence. But Joe, I noted that you wrote an article this morning in relation to the jersey pulling from Dujon Sterling on Sebastian Tunekti. And you quite rightly stated that he was held onto for 6 seconds. And his jersey was tugged for 6 seconds. He went out over the end line and absolutely collapsed in a heap on the ground. And how that wasn't picked up is really beyond me. That level of jersey pulling for that. Now, we talked last week about this excuse that they made that the jersey wasn't being held for long enough. Is 6 seconds long enough? You know what I mean? How long do you have to hold on to a jersey for it to be construed to be a foul? You know what I mean? So, I mean, you had another penalty decision as well, Joe. What was that one again? Sorry, no, I can't remember.
11th minute, free kick, corner kick for Celtic. The Ox's corners were pretty horrendous. Didn't seem to reach anywhere. But Scales frightened the life out of their new hard man from Sturm Graz. And he pulled at Scales. As Scales went towards the front post, it was rugby tackle. That might be something that Tom English could maybe pick up on. Apparently he knows about egg chasing. But it was very clear. And I get that there was no replay on Sky Sports. Sky Sports didn't want to know. And the other one on Tunetke in the 82nd minute, we've got our good friend Lint on Twitter to thank for that, because Sky Sports wouldn't show you it. Sports Scene wouldn't show you it. The Daily Record, the Daily Mail, the Herald, all the rest of them, they wouldn't dare touch it. They're all falling over themselves to tell you what a great game John Beaton had. There was no Morelos-type travesties in this match, but between Beaton and McLean, they both decided to miss those incidents. And after the publicity for Austin Trusty getting sent off last week, these things should be getting looked at. Unfortunately, we know that Celtic won't raise them, but the 82nd minute one, it was way above the norm. Tunetke took a touch. Sterling realised he was getting beaten. Sterling put his arm out, and the clip lasts about 9 seconds, for about 6 seconds of that, Sterling is holding Tunetke's jersey. We can see John Beaton behind it. It's front on with the cameras. So in the VAR room, Clancy and McLean have got all the Sky Sports cameras. They've got a few additional cameras, and they opted not to take any action on that. So that was typical of them. And it's also quite typical. We're supposed to be grateful that they spotted the penalty that was eventually given. That's the level of expectation that there is. When they get something right, when they do something properly, it's looked on as some sort of favour for Celtic. The incident was strange. The ball came in and the ball just seemed to continue. But there was 3 bits of contact. There was contact between Maeda's head, Sterling's arm, and I think Butland's shoulder or chest, and the ball continued. But they did their job. It's like an airline pilot landing you in sunny Spain, and all these BAMs stand up and start clapping and saying, well done. I mean, that's what McLean and Clancy were there to do. And something strange happened in that instant. James Forrest cross, and they reviewed it, and they realised that Sterling had lifted his arm. His boot had tried to kick Maeda's head. Sterling's arm knocked the ball onto Super Jack Butland, who pulled off a world-class save. But alas, the save was from Sterling's arm rather than Maeda's header. We got the penalty, and it took Hatate as long to put it in the net as it took Beaton to finally come up with the decision. But we got there in the end. But it was poor refereeing, and I suspect on Sunday it's either David Dickinson or Don Robertson, and we know what to expect from both of them. Exactly the same as we got yesterday. No favours.
Absolutely, yeah. I just noticed that one of our commenters said apparently it was Kevin Clancy's input that resulted in the decision for the penalty. But you're right there in what you were saying.
No one knows that's assumption from the other side, because they wouldn't expect McLean to do it, but it might have been prompted by Clancy. It might not have been prompted by Clancy, but it confirms the level of suspicion.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it probably got to the point where they did see the incidents that you've highlighted in the 11th and the 82nd minute, and chose to ignore those, and then realised that, look, this is the third time. No, we have to give a penalty at this stage. But yeah, I mean, I suppose if you take those incidents out of the equation, there wasn't a whole pile of refereeing scandal in the game at all, which is surprising. I mean, Beaton usually, like I said at the outset, he seemed absolutely distraught when he had to give a penalty, but he knew he had no choice. Because ultimately, if Sterling hadn't blocked it, it probably would have gone past Jack Butland into net. So, I mean, it was, but at the same time, then, if he denied a goal scoring opportunity, should he not have even been? Why didn't he get carded?
It should have been a yellow. But one other instant, first half, midway through it, John Suter had the most horrific assault on Junior Dando.
Oh yeah,
Junior Adamu. I hear other people getting his name wrong, so I better not get it wrong. Adamu. I mean, it just came at him from all sorts of angles: legs, backside, arms, all sorts. Flattening Adamu. That's one of these things. Just let it go. If he'd been booked for that, he might have been slower to chop down to Netke in the second half when he did finally get a booking. Yeah.
James, yourself, what did you think? I mean, would you say, as if we take those three penalty incidents out of the equation, did you feel all right? And obviously, we're piling them up here, actually, if we're being honest, and we talk about the Adamu incident as well. But overall, as refereeing performances go in a derby game, what was your view on it? I mean, did you think it was just more of the same, the usual crap?
Of course, it was more of the same. I'm writing a piece for I've 3/4 finished a piece for the Morra that is deeply sarcastic, all focused on John Beaton's walk to the VAR monitor. I mean, he genuinely did look like somebody had chapped on his door and said, "I think you better come outside. I think I've ran out of your dug." That's what his face like as he was walking towards it. And the length of time it took to make a decision was horrendous. I mean, what the decision itself you can spot in 2 seconds. You can see in 2 seconds. The first look at the footage tells you that that's a stonewall penalty. And even most of the Ibrox fan forums aren't even arguing the point. I watched a couple of their podcasts today, and they were adamant that anybody who's claiming it's no penalty is absolutely taking the piss. So it's an obvious decision. So what's he looking at it 18 times for? He's looking at it to find any pretext in which not to get. That's all he's doing. Beaton is gutted at having to give that. And if it is Clancy who's responsible for it rather than McLean, Clancy's probably told McLean off mic that there's no way we can't give this. We'll look ridiculous. We'll look like cheats. There's no way we can't give this. It's a stonewaller. So, I mean, it's that decision is incredible. But as you said, Joe, right, the Taneki one, this is where the SFA sets up its own bullshit precedents, right? All this talk about how long your jersey has to be held, right? Because, again, we never got clarification on that, right? So that incident and that excuse sets up the Taneki incident.
Because the guy thinking to himself, well, I'm allowed to hold on to his jersey for a certain period of time. And since nobody's clarified what that is, I'll just hold on to it. And that's what happens. I mean, one bit of SFA bollocks just sets up the next bit of SFA bollocks. We'll never get an explanation for it. And you're right, Celtic will never ask. Celtic will never bother to ask. Yeah. But we should. And the one with scale, I thought at the time that was a horrendous decision. But as you said, Sky never even bothers to show you a replay. Never even bothers.
Yeah. I have to give a shout out to Brennan Boy on X today. I ended up doing an article on it. I don't know if he made the AI video or he got it from somewhere, but somebody did an AI video called The Loudon to the tune of Cheers, and it starts with Ted Danson and a couple of the guys in Cheers all depressed in Ibrox jerseys, and then Shelley Long pours a pint of beer over her head, and then you get the Cheers team. It's absolutely brilliant. Beaton comes bursting into the bar with tears pouring down his face. They're saying he better stay the fuck away. It's really well done. So I mean, it's if anybody wants to catch it, I did an article on Read Celtic today on it because I couldn't let it slide. It was well done. I mean, that is one thing I have to say for the Celtic fans. With shithousery, we're untouchable. We really are. And the Ibrox fans, the Huns, they just cannot compete with the level of shithousery that we do. And some of the stuff online and in social media yesterday was absolutely hilarious, but that was one of the ones that topped it all off. And I felt it needed a bit more exposure because I didn't think it was getting enough. So yeah, it was really good. But so we move on, guys. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Now, when I saw his name on the starting 11, I was pretty confident, that he would have a good game. I thought that he was the kind of player who was made for a game like this. But as you guys kind of alluded to earlier on there, the start of the game, like you were saying to your mate James, we haven't even shown up what's going on here. I was saying the same to my mates. I was saying we haven't even managed to string 2 passes together, which it was a long time before we managed to string more than 2 passes together in that first half. And there was one incident where the Ox was literally bundled over and dispossessed with the greatest of ease, and I was totally blown away by it. I mean, do you think, Joe, I'll start with you, Joe. Do you think it was the case if he was just, as many of the players, of the big name players that have come up from down south, do you think that he was just blown away and overwhelmed by the whole atmosphere and the intensity and the way that Celtic were being overrun? Or do you think that it was down to the deficiencies of the midfield that we had? The way the midfield was set up? Because to be honest, putting Nygren in midfield, he doesn't contribute anything really to the midfield. He doesn't have the steel that we kind of need in midfield in a game like that. So do you think it was that he was overwhelmed or just the midfield wasn't working?
No, I don't think he was much worse than Nygren or McGregor. The system wasn't working. Yang and Maeda contributed very little on the wings, and Junior Adamu barely got a look in. I mean, there's one stage, Maeda broke quite promisingly down the left. Adamu was running in, and the cross from Maeda was horrific. So it was risky in that we started with the Ox, but we're not overflowing with options. Bernardo never even made the bench yesterday. The Ox wasn't involved against Stuttgart on Thursday night. So Martin O'Neill didn't have too many options. It was either McCowan or the Ox playing in, or possibly Hatate. But most folk, I mean, if Hatate played from the start, there could have been a clamour to get him hooked at half time. But the situation of the game with them, I mean, we've all seen their superhuman physical efforts in the past. James has covered it in the Van Bronckhorst era, the incredible fitness levels they've got, but you didn't see that yesterday. And when they were tiring, Hatate was the perfect guy to come on. So it could have been Hatate started and put on the Ox at half time, and he turned it. So I wouldn't be too harsh on the Ox. The Hibs game was the first game he started in long enough. So his Celtic career was 15 minutes against Livingston, half a game against Kilmarnock, an hour against Hibs, and then he get 45 minutes yesterday. So he's got to be managed. He should be an asset. After the Aberdeen game, I don't think we've got any midweek matches, so that should help things a fair bit. So I don't think it was a fixture, all this nonsense. We've heard it all before about how it's the greatest fixture in the world, and Warriors from England come up and get melted by the passion of 40,000 right-wing maniacs singing their tunes of hate. I suspect after playing in Turkey, it wasn't anything horrific to them. Celtic got everything wrong in the first half, from the selection, the tactics. Dane Murray's another example. He was at fault for the second goal. I would say Araujo was equally at fault for the second goal, but Murray recovered and had a decent second half when it could have been easy to crumble. 2-0 down, and they're playing into the Union Bears, etc. But Murray recovered, and everyone's second half performance was a hell of a lot better than their first half. We don't quite know the reasons for that, but thank God it happened.
Yeah, I think you're right there, because if we go back to the previous games that the Ox has been involved in, especially the Kilmarnock game, where we saw the difference he made, or the impact he made when he came on in the second half, when once again we were 2-0 down. And he made a huge impact when he came on in the second half. And, you know, one of our commenters there is saying as well that he's probably better as an impact sub. And maybe that's the way, you know, Martin will set things up now from next week, where he actually comes in the second half and he has a serious influence over the game that way. What about you, James? Are you pretty much echoing Joe's sentiments there, that it was just that the way the midfield was set up in that first half just didn't suit his style of play, or that he was somewhat overwhelmed by the atmosphere? What did you think?
I think the idea that he was overwhelmed by the atmosphere is fairly ludicrous, considering Joe is right. He's playing in Turkey and he's playing in some massive games south of the border and in Europe. I don't think there's any arena that's going to intimidate a guy who's as experienced as that. I think the pace of it just shocked him. I think the full frontal 100-mile-an-hour it just took him completely by surprise. There's a lot of players who come up here genuinely with the head on that they're just going to dominate games, and it doesn't happen, and a lot of them disappear. Like, I mean, Joey Barton, I don't remember him ever even having a good 20 minutes at the Ibrox club. He came up here thinking that he was a superstar and got the shock of his life within like weeks. And then he played against us and completely vanished for that game. And it seemed like he didn't want to kick another ball for them, because he just realised he was getting shown up every single week. I don't think Oxlade-Chamberlain is that guy, because his wee cameo where he scores the late goal and his performance against Kilmarnock suggests that he's got something to offer. Yeah. I totally agree with Joe that the whole shape that we were set up was completely wrong. There's people who have suggested that it was only the substitutions that changed the game yesterday. But O'Neill changed more than just the personnel. We played in a different way the second half. We slowed the game down in the second half. It suited him to try and play at 100 miles an hour. And all we did was say, right, we're going to keep the ball for that few seconds longer and no try and rush a pass. And we made them chases a bit like careless chickens in the last 20 minutes of the game. They were dropping like flies. You wouldn't think it was us who'd played a midweek European game. And I think if we force them to attempt to chase us all over the pitch next week, we'll win comfortably in the cup game. We've just got to get the approach right. And O'Neill did, as I say, a lot more than just change of personnel. It's the approach and the style of play in the second half that makes a difference as much as the personnel. And Oxlade-Chamberlain might have slotted very nicely into that role. I understand why he took him off rather than Nygren, although Nygren was virtually anonymous, except that Nygren is the one that crosses the ball for Tierney's header, and that's why Nygren's still on the pitch.
That's why he's there, yeah.
Or a substitution was a mistake, and I said I thought we should have brought on Cavankara and gave their defence something extra to think about. And then he goes and crosses the ball for my header, which comes off Sterling's on. So, I mean, Martin knows his shit better than I will ever know it. And he got his decisions spot on yesterday.
Yeah.
And I have to say, by the way, also about Arayo. I thought Arayo made a couple of mistakes, right? But I love that guy. I wish we could keep him. I hope that we can cobble together the cash to make him at least make his club an offer, because I think he'll jump at a chance to come sign for us.
Oh, I think so.
He understands it completely, and he was noising him up at full time yesterday, like I've rarely seen a Celtic player do, and he was driving them absolutely mental. It was superb. It was. And then when somebody challenged him for it, he's like pointing at his head like he's an utter.
No, he is. He's another one that's great with the shithousery, isn't he?
Oh, amazing.
He's brilliant. Yeah, good wind-up merchant. I think somebody just commented there and said it's the Ox's legs. I mean, Callum McGregor's 33. The Ox is younger than him, so maybe he should take a few leaves out of Callum McGregor's book about fitness and look at what Callum McGregor does in his training regime to get up to that level of an engine to keep himself going throughout the game, in the midfield. So just briefly, I want to touch on, and we did touch on it a bit earlier on, but I want to touch on the point that if obviously the 3 points are vital now in midweek against Aberdeen, and we win that, we move up to second. I think if we move up to second, it's unlikely that the Ibrox side will. It's unlikely they will come back up. I think they'll stay in third after that. But in terms of the gap, it will be 5 points. And we, as Joe kind of alluded to earlier on there, we need a favour from someone somewhere along the line. The question is, where's that favour going to come from? Now, we obviously know what we have to do at Celtic Park, but is it going to be Motherwell that'll do us that favour? Because, I mean, in their upcoming fixtures, they're playing Kilmarnock away, they're playing Dundee, isn't it? I think it's Dundee as well. And then they're playing, they will be playing Motherwell at home at Tynecastle on the 11th of April, which is a bit away. But that looks like the most likely fixture where they're going to be challenged, or, they're going to come up against a team that's been in the mix and could still be in the mix. So I'll go to you first on this one, James. Do you think, potentially, do you see points, Hearts dropping points, or any points up till the 11th of April with the way that they're playing? Because they're grinding out 1-0 wins. They just keep grinding out results at the moment. Are they going to keep doing that?
Oh, easily. I mean, the so-called Hearts surge is one of the most overhyped and overrated things I think I've ever experienced in Scottish football. If either ourselves or the club across the city is even 5% better, there isn't a title race to even talk about. I mean, the stat keeps getting thrown around that we've lost 7 league games this season, right? We lost 4 of them in the space of a month under the most hapless person who's ever sat in the Celtic dugout, right? So, to me, that's a completely irrelevant stat. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, that stat. It doesn't influence me in the slightest. If you look at the Ibrox club, they've now drew 16 games or something, right? It's pretty atrocious, right? And this guy, by the way, for all he's touted as some kind of genius, is now responsible for over half of them, and he's responsible for 1 or 2 defeats as well. So he is no any great shakes. But if they were in slightly better nick, or if we hadn't gone through the Wilfred Noncy nightmare, this already would be done. Would be virtually done. So Hearts are going to drop points between now and the end of the season. Absolutely, they will. It's whether we, it's whichever version of us decides to turn up week by week. But if we play anywhere near for the rest of the season like we played in the second half yesterday, we win the title. I've no even got the slightest doubt about it. Whether they finish second or third is the question that will define next season. Because I wrote that horror show piece last week about the potential consequences for us if finishing second, third, and fourth. But as I said on the podcast last Monday, that just as easily applies to them. And they're now in serious danger of finishing third, and the consequences for them will be epochal. I mean, we at least can sell a couple of players, make up the shortfall, and still have enough money for a rebuild. I don't know where the sellable assets in that team of theirs are. They're a mess. They are an absolute mess. They need yet another summer rebuild on top of the one that they've just had, on top of the money they've spent in January. And I don't know where the cash for it is coming from, unless they've got money in the mattress somewhere. There was an interesting side note to that, which none of the media, not a single outlet, bothered to pick up, except a Leeds United fan site, which says that Marathi has stepped off their board of directors at Ibrox. He's resigned for their board of directors, right? And the reason that he's done it, surprise, surprise, is UEFA multi-club ownership regulations, which all three of your blogs highlighted at the time and said was something they could not possibly get around, and which everybody in the mainstream media says, we're told it's no problem. Guys, about time you all started doing your own fucking jobs instead of having us do them for you. Of course it was going to be a problem. You can't have a guy who's chairman of one club and vice chairman of another club in the same competition, you tits. It was obvious it was going to be a problem, and now it's confirmed that it's a problem. And he's had to step away from involvement at Ibrox. But I haven't read it anywhere else. So I don't know. Maybe we imagined it. Maybe we're the ones who are right, but it doesn't seem as if we are.
How about you, Joe? Do you feel that we're going to require favours from other sides to get Hearts to drop those points? Do you agree with the point that a lot of the commenters there are saying like that they're top and they keep grinding out results? Do you feel that they're going to just capitulate and they run in, or what do you think is going to happen?
On evidence so far, all three clubs are going to drop quite a lot of points in the remaining matches. So after the split, Hearts will go to Easter Road and Celtic Park. So it'd be nice if they dropped some points before then, but in those fixtures, I wouldn't expect them to take 6 points. So if it's a defeat at Celtic Park and a draw at Easter Road and we win, then... But again, it's... As I said earlier, you can't speculate too much. It's game by game. Motherwell have an influence. Motherwell could be getting quite close to getting involved in this. They're hampered. I think they drew something like 6 of their first 7 or 8 matches. But Hearts will drop points. The Ibrox mob will drop points. I think they're away to St Mirren and Falkirk before the break. Grounds that they don't have that great a record at. And then they're away to Celtic, Hearts and somebody else after the split. So they're going to drop quite a lot of points unless something spectacular happens. So, as I said, if Celtic get 10 games left, if Celtic can get 27 points or maybe 25, that'll probably be enough to win the league. It's going to be a tally in the low 80s. It might even be something like 81 or even 80. So... you can speculate in this one, that one, the next one, but it's a usual fallback. But it's all about Celtic, and we have lost 7 matches so far. So if we can win our next 7 games, we'll be in a great position. Hearts will drop points. Danny Rowe's lot, they'll drop points as well. So where it will be, who knows? And again, I think Hearts will be away at Firth Park. So Hearts' 3 post-split away matches will be Celtic, Hibs and Motherwell. So again, if Celtic win their matches, and you can't look beyond Aberdeen Wednesday night, Celtic win at Aberdeen, then we can start getting a bit more confidence. But that confidence only lasts until April the 14th when we get Motherwell at home. March the 14th when we get Motherwell at home. If we, as I said, if we beat Aberdeen, if we beat Motherwell, Hearts kick off at Kilmarnock 2 points ahead of Celtic, and they've lost at St Mirren, they've lost at Aberdeen. Their team's in the bottom 6, and they're well capable of dropping points in any match. Unfortunately, so are we.
Yeah, we've got to be realistic there. We are very capable of dropping points at the moment. And I think that's probably one of the biggest issues. We're probably, there's not one of us 3 anyway is 100% confident going into Wednesday at Pittodrie. It's going to be a tough one. Even though, let's be honest about it, Aberdeen aren't playing very well at the moment.
And we're going to get kicked off the pitch.
Yeah, well, that's what we expect from them, So it's definitely going to be a tough one on Wednesday night. But I think the comeback in the second half against the Ibrox side will have instilled a level of confidence into the guys, and I think they know what's at stake. So you'd hope, anyway, that they will go there and grind out a result. Danny Rose, after match comments, and he tried to say, just one thing that I want to touch on briefly, he tried to say that Celtic were lucky. How can you say that a side that absolutely dominated you in the second half and had 16 attempts on goal were lucky? If anything, his side were lucky to get away with the draw, because if we had been in any way more clinical, we would have actually walked away with that game. And we'll touch on this it's our next subject on the agenda. But if Dyson Maeda had the ability to head a ball to the left or the right corner of a net rather than directly at a keeper, which he seems to have an uncanny ability to do all the time, we could have been out of sight if he had taken the chances that he had. But I mean, you cannot say that Celtic were lucky in that game. There was no luck involved in it. They were lucky not to get, as we talked about earlier on, they were lucky not to have conceded 2 other penalties. So I don't think there was any luck involved in it. I think it was grit and determination to grind out a result. So James, what's your view on it? I mean, he definitely is in no position to be calling us lucky, is he?
Well, he's very lucky that the ball that lands at Luke McKeown's feet is just a few yards short of where McKeown would have been able to just slide it into the back of the net. Because that was the best bit of football that any of the 2 teams played in the whole game. I absolutely dismantled that back line of theirs. It's one of the best bits of football I've actually seen Celtic play this season. It was clinical. It was exceptional. And the only thing lacking is that McGowan's not quite got the angle for the finish. But I don't know what. You know what? This happens to them, all of them earlier. Happens to all of them. Stephen McKeown's got it 100% right. I know we've all written about this and we've all talked about it, but something happens to people who go and play for that club. They start off normal and it doesn't, and some of them get indoctrinated right away, and other ones it takes a bit longer. Philip Clement, we were talking about this in the pub yesterday. Philip Clement seemed like a really level-headed and genuinely decent human being when he started at Ibrox, and within months he was a raving maniac on the subject of Celtic. And it does it to all of them eventually. They all get sucked into this vortex of hatred. And Rowe was one of the guys that get indoctrinated straight away. And to a certain extent, he had to, because he knew that he wasn't Mr. Popular earlier when he got appointed. And he had just seen what happened to his predecessor getting absolutely trashed in a matter of weeks. And he straight away decided he was going to pander and go and be the Union Brat's best pal and all that, and the Brown Brogues and everything else. And I'll adopt the standards of this club and all that and all that shit. And so it's no surprise that he has become an anti-Celtic maniac this early. But what I think we've found in the last 3 or 4 days is that he's terrible under pressure, because McKeown's comments were nothing. They were throwaway remarks. They didn't mention his team at all.
Yeah.
And then he goes off on that rant about it prior to and his pre-match press conference for this game. And O'Neill brutalised them in O'Neill's comments. Absolutely brutalised them. O'Neill was surgical and precise and took his argument apart and rammed it back down his throat. I thought it was one of O'Neill's best press conferences since he came back. Joe, I know you've said a lot about how the "I'm just an old guy" thing irritates the shit out of you. It's the shit out of you, mate, is that we know it's an act. But Danny Rowe apparently did not know it was an act and thought that he could get away with that. And it wasn't so much that the mask slipped as O'Neill just left it on the table before that press conference started and showed his claws, as I said in the piece that I wrote about it. And I said in the piece that if Rowe responds to that, then you know his mind was never on the game. His mind's on the personal vendetta. And before the game, he had a minor rant about it again. So you're like, you know what I mean? This guy can't focus. And then he goes after another rant at full time. That's a guy who's cracking under pressure. That guy feels it pressing down on him, and he's not handling it well. O'Neill, on the other hand, who has been over the course a million times, knows exactly what he's doing and knows exactly what he's doing, mate. And it's water off a duck's back to him. He talked again yesterday about how the game aged him and how his birthday cake was late and he could have been dead by the time he got it, right? But O'Neill knows exactly what he's doing. O'Neill thrives in this pressure. This guy does not at all. Absolutely does not at all. And as I said in the Fear and Loathing piece that's gone up at 8 o'clock, his grave's already dug. We've said it a million times. He'll be if they finish third or fourth, he won't see out the season. There's no way that they can go in the next season with a guy who finished third or fourth. And the worst possible thing that could happen to him is exactly what happened to Philip Clement, right? And as I said at the time, Phil Clement inherits a shambles. He comes in inheriting an absolute mess, same as this guy did. And the Clement's biggest sin and the biggest thing that counted against him was that he turned it around. And he edged in front of us for a brief period of time. And the narrative should have been for Clement at the end of that season. He inherited a basket case. He made us credible. Next season, we'll hit the ground running. But instead, the narrative was, you're the guy who got in front and blew it. Right? And that changed everything for him. And Rowe is now in the exact same position. Edged ahead of Celtic, almost on Hearts' coattails. And he'll be the guy who's blew it at the end of the season. It cannot happen to a nicer guy because I dislike this guy strongly already. Just for the way he's pandered and just for the way he's behaved. I wish him nothing but the worst of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed as well in his pre-match interview, he still had to harp on about the goalkeeper comment that he made about Kasper Schmeichel. He still had to have that little cut at the start, before the game started. And, the funny thing about it is 5 of the players on the field yesterday for the Ibrox side were players that were brought in by Russell Martin. And his, and Chermiti being one of those. And, like, you look at the level of draws that Roll has had as well. And what was crucifying Russell Martin at the outset of the season, was that he was drawing a lot of games. He wasn't winning many. But they don't seem to be taking into account. Well, I mean, they had a meltdown yesterday, all right, over the fact that he drew the, I think it's got to them now that in the last 4 fixtures he's drawn 3. It's starting to get to them and it's winding them up, if you saw the comments on social media anyway. But, Joe, what's your view on it? I mean, this guy he's just another pretender, and ultimately you feel he's going to crack under the pressure like they all do?
He's already there. It's great how they start off as dull as dishwater, saying absolutely nothing, but they're in an Ibrox bubble where they talk to guys like John Brown for some historical perspective, and they get fed all the paranoia under the sun. And then at the media conferences, there's nothing close to a worthwhile question asked of them. But for some reason on Friday, he went off and won, and to be talking about how he was surprised that Celtic didn't go for a 3-0 victory against Stuttgart. Well, we're surprised he never went for a 3-0 victory in any of the 5 Europa League. I think it might have been 6 Europa League matches. I think it was 6 Europa League matches. He missed out on Genk and Sturm Graz away. He had 6 Europa League matches. He lost 4 of them, drew 1 and lost 1. So this notion that he's dishing out advice to Martin O'Neill, I reckon when Danny Rowe was born, Martin O'Neill was already in management. So Martin O'Neill's been in management for every day of Danny Rowe's life. 89 games, I think it was, at Sheffield Wednesday. I think he's up about 30 at Ibrox, and he thinks he knows everything. But when you're getting advice from John Brown and other nutters around Ibrox, and then you're speaking to the Scottish media, and they're telling you how wonderful you are, etc., etc., it doesn't take much for you to flip. As James mentioned, there's great parallels with Phil Clement. When he lost at home to Motherwell, they lost 2-1 at home to Motherwell, and Clement says something. I think amongst some of the bonker stuff was Rangers should have won the match. That's Rangers. That's what he refers to the match. We know them as something different. You should have won the match 6-1. Well, fair enough, you might have scored some of the chances that you missed, but Motherwell did score 2 genuine goals that day, and he'd knocked one of them off. And Jack Butland was chucking them in that day. And then the top piece and all that was the lap of honour and the moral victory when they drew 3 each with Celtic, followed quickly by a defeat at Ross County. They were going bonkers about the pitch at Dens Park. When it finally get played, they drew nothing each there, and it was all downhill fast for Clermont. So hopefully Danny Rowe is about to experience the same decline. He's showing all the signs. He's been sucked into their madness. He's spouting out all the nonsense, and hopefully he's managing Norwich or somebody else at some point next season back in the English Championship, which is his level. But again, it's interesting, it's amusing, it's great to see it happen. It's great that they never learn, whether it's the supporters, the media, or the club itself. But let's sit back and have a laugh at that. But we don't lose focus on what a mess our club is. Our club has been held together by a manager. It never ever happened in a million years. But if Martin O'Neill's in charge at Ibrox, he might be able to fashion something out of them. And if we had Danny Rowe, he's slightly better than Wilfred Nancy. But let's not forget, we appointed Michael Nicholson as one and only candidate, the leading candidate, etc., etc. We had an absolute rocket in charge of our club as well. So don't get too far out ahead of ourselves. We are just as capable of madness.
It's how quickly it happens there. But I know that Pedro Caixinha was always a bit mental. I mean, it's obvious that he arrived in Scotland absolutely barking. Right, but to be addressing the fans for the bushes after their humiliating European result, and then to go on his incredible word salad meltdowns in front of the Scottish media, they were incredible. But Philip Clement, don't mention the VAR where he did the whole Basil Fawlty funny walk. that will forever be the greatest managerial meltdown at Ibrox that I've ever witnessed. Ever witnessed. And he also was a bit mental at the start. The media seemed to like him an awful lot. But I keep thinking about that Sun interview that he gave dead early in his Ibrox tenure, where he talked about how he left his wife because she wasn't as competitive as him. And that when his kids were young, he would never let them win at anything. But that must have been a fucking fun household to live in. You know what I mean with that guy? He sounds like a headbanger. And it's no surprise that he eventually melted down. But where did he get them from? I mean, it's amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing to me. And this guy's at the top drawer of lunatics.
Yeah, Pedro was a piece of work. He was just one of those things, or the likes of which we'll never see again, which we'd love to see again. Yeah, we'll never see again.
On cone because he'd once ridden on a jet ski.
yeah. But I mean, it's clear Danny Rowe is probably going to melt down. When the time comes towards the end of the season, I think the meltdown is going to be epic everywhere at Ibrox. But if he's leading the way, it's going to be brilliant.
Don't forget Matt Warburton in this Roll of Honour, a City banker. Every day he went to work in the City of London and he was doing £1 billion deals morning, noon and night. He was a future England manager, and then he ended up 35 points behind after 25 matches, and he resigned himself. He found out watching Sky Sports News.
He did.
So, there's hours of fun to be had and all that.
There is, but
absolutely. One day somebody's going to do a compilation video on how each of the Ajax managers met his demise, and it's going to be hilarious to watch. It'll be the most watched Celtic-related video on YouTube. It will be tremendous, and I'm looking forward to Danny Rowe's particular chapter in it. It's going to be great. Yeah. It's going to be brilliant.
Okay, guys, we'll move along to our next point. Maeda and Hatate. Now, let's be fair. We saw the player that Hatate is when he came on in the second half. We saw what he's capable of doing. Now, all we need from Rio Hatate is to keep doing that for the rest of this season. If he can continue to play like that, if he can pull that kind of a performance out for every game that he's involved in for the rest of this season, he'll have done a good job this season, as far as I'm concerned. I just would be worried that performance yesterday was a once-off, because the consistency this season has been very poor from Rio Hatate. And he's up to yesterday showing that he's completely disinterested in being involved with Celtic. It's just been the theme of his whole season. Maeda frustrated the living hell out of me yesterday. He was just so not at it at all. And it really did surprise me that, Martin O'Neill kept him on in the second half. And okay, fair enough. We wouldn't have got the penalty if it wasn't for him heading that ball. But I mean, I felt that Svan Chara could have probably done, had a more impactful kind of he would have had a better impact anyway had he been brought on. But we've talked about Benjamin Negron being an enigma, but what is Rio Hatate? I mean, there is a player in there. There's no two ways about it. And we also know the same applies to Rio or Daizen Maeda, because we saw what level of player he is last season when he stepped up to the plate, when we didn't bother to buy a striker and we let Kyogo Furuhashi go. When he stepped up to the plate and scored 33 goals, we saw the kind of player that he is too. Now, I know that both of them have been very, what would you say, well, more so Maeda than Hatate, because Maeda was due to be sold, or, he was close to being sold by the club. Hatate hasn't been, because he hasn't been showing any sort of a level, of consistency to be even putting himself in a shop window. But I'll start with you, Joe. I mean, what is it with these two? Are we going to see the two players that they can be for the run-in? Or are we just going to get more of the same? Are we just going to get two guys who at times are putting in insipid performances? Yesterday, finally, we got to see Rio Hatate. We didn't see the Daizen Maeda that we'd normally see at Ibrox, but what do you expect off the two of them for the rest of the season?
Like the predictions of who's going to drop points, no one knows. Both these guys are in their fifth year at Celtic. Never in a million years when they came over, signing on the 31st of December 2021, would they have thought that in 2026 they'd still be at Celtic. So it's one of those awkward ones. They should have been replaced. They should have been sold. We keep getting told by the Celtic media cheerleaders that we've got a fantastic player trading model. Absolutely not. We get lucky with a few sales, and then we top that off by signing lots of guys that are nowhere near it. So we've had fantastic value out of these two guys. I think their agents and Celtic will be doing absolutely everything to find them clubs in the summer, and it'll be easier for them to do that if they're in form and they're part of a successful Celtic side. But we have no idea. There's nobody. I think Sinisalo is possibly one guy you can rely on between now and the end of the season. Whether it's midfielders, strikers, or whatever else, Scales is fairly reliable. Trusty's hot and cold. So we have no idea what we're getting from them. All we can do is hope for the best. Hope Martin O'Neill can coax them through, get the best out of them. But Maeda, I think, is a real worry, and that's one of the reasons I'd be suggesting switch to a 4-4-2, and if it's Grankara, Junior Adamu, and Maeda as the three options, rotating them, and possibly Ben Nygren, get pushed into an advanced midfield role, withdrawn striker role. I think that's far better. Maeda out on the left is a shadow of what he's been at his best. So it's man management. It's down to Martin O'Neill to find out what's best. But he's got very limited options. We've seen that Bernardo came in for Stuttgart at home and hasn't played a minute since. He wasn't on the bench at the weekend. Iheanacho came off the bench against Stuttgart at home and apparently was training in Manchester yesterday. So it's fingers crossed that Martin O'Neill can find something and get the best out of these guys and everyone else over the remaining 10 or more matches of the season.
What about you, James? I mean, what's your feeling on Daizen Maeda and Rio Hatate? What are we going to see? Do you feel we're going to see them actually start performing for the run-in, or is it going to be hit and miss for the rest of the season? I feel, we like I said earlier on, we definitely got to see the player that Hatate is yesterday. So did he just feel that he needed to turn it on for as big a game as that was yesterday, and we're just going to see the regular Rio for the rest of the season?
Well, I spend a lot of time slagging CQN on here, right? So I'm going to give some credit where it's due. I thought that Paul Brennan wrote an excellent article on Friday morning about Rio's performance in Stuttgart. Because O'Neill shifted the midfield system in Stuttgart and got the best performance out of Hitachi that we'd seen in months. Because he didn't play him too far up the pitch. He withdrew him and played him along with Callum McGregor. And it made some difference to the whole way we played. And I think that O'Neill sort of did that yesterday when he brought Rio on. And if he wants to get a tune out of Rio, he will do that for the rest of the season. And we will see the player, again, that we saw a couple of years back, who was the best midfielder in Scotland by a country mile, with the exception of Callum himself. There is a misunderstanding about Maeda, which Martin is not helping with at all. He's trying to play Maeda as a traditional winger, and Maeda is not in a million years a winger. And the thing about Rodgers is that neither Rodgers nor Ange ever played Maeda as a winger. And so we're losing a lot of Maeda's natural talent by playing him in a position that he just obviously cannot play. O'Neill likes his wingers, but Ange and Brendan played Maeda as an inside forward. So instead of hugging the line, he would be on the edge of the penalty box for the whole game. And if you gave him the ball at his feet, he would try and beat defenders, and it's where he scored a lot of his goals. And the fact that we played on the other side of the pitch, another inside forward, and Nicholas Kuhn, is the reason we scored so many goals that season. That was one of Brendan's best moves, is to combine both of them and have both of them playing in tight. And that's why our strikers tended not to get so many goals that season, because you day through who were the whole creative force of the team. And if O'Neill just shifts Maeda back to his best position, we'll see the best of Maeda, no question at all.
Okay. But yesterday he didn't really, I mean, when he moved him into the middle even, he didn't seem to have much of an impact. Like I said,
he's never really been great as a natural striker, but the one thing he did stay, and the one thing he did yesterday, is he creates absolute chaos and confusion for defenders, because they never know what the hell he's going to do from 1 second to the next. And in keeping Maeda on, what you're doing is you're keeping potential on the pitch, basically. Because you know that if Maeda gets a half chance, he's got to take it. Because although he's not a natural striker, he's a great natural finisher, and he can put the ball in the net if he gets enough opportunities. And that's what you keep him on the pitch for. The problem is that you've got to create the opportunities and get the bottom in a packed penalty area. And that's, again, why I don't think he's a natural striker. But if you play him out wide, if you play him on the edge of the penalty box where Brendan used to play him and where Ange used to play him, he will work magic, and he'll score a lot of goals again. He'll pull defenders out of position. He'll create opportunities for your striker. It'll be a whole different team. But Martin's got to want to do it. But Martin likes his wingers a wee bit too much. Yeah. I think, by the way, Taneki's probably an inside forward better than a winger as well. And we've seen that with the way he cuts inside and shoots and scores the goals he has.
Yeah, he definitely seems to like to cut inside. It seems to be his signature move anytime he's when he's got the ball. But okay, we'll start to wrap things up, guys. We did touch on it earlier on, but the greatest derby goal of all time. I'm going to get your votes and give my vote on what I think is the greatest derby goal of all time. Well, you'd have to say, I'm sure back in the 60s and 70s and 80s there were plenty of great derby goals that people aren't talking about now. But effectively, I guess we're talking about the modern era, the 21st century. So, for you, James, which one would you say is your greatest of all time?
They scored an absolute beauty at Ibrox in the centenary year, which was one of the best midfield goals, the best goals for a midfielder I've seen against them. Collins used to score a lot of them. Alan Thompson scored a long-range beauty and all. Big Sutton's goal for the whitewash.
That's right, yeah.
I watched that about 10 times last week as well. But for me, Nakamura's is unmatched. just for the technical skill involved in that, and to hit it for 40 yards. It's a ludicrous goal. It's an absolutely ludicrous goal. If a player in La Liga had scored that, or a player in the English Premier League, it would be on permanent play every weekend. I mean, it's one of the goals you would watch again and again and again. The whole world would be talking about it. It's outrageous. There's no even a debate about it for me that it's the best derby goal of all time. And that one, it's competing against Larsson's chip in the 6-2 game. But the one I always say is Larsson's best goal isn't even the one in the 6-2 game. It's the one in the Hampton semi-final where he chips Stefan Kosfei about 6 feet away and runs round him and gets the ball in the line or the line before it even drops. That is the technical skill to score that is even better than the 6-2 goal. And somebody reminded me of the one that Larsson scored at Ibrox, where the ball comes to him and just on the edge of the penalty area, where he's got his back to the goal and he chases and volleys it. That's a phenomenal goal as well. I mean, my God. And Tom English gone off his nut about it being probably, quite possibly the best goal in Scottish football. Off, you loony. What?
Yeah, but you also do you remember the one he scored in the 3-0 at the end of the 2001 season, the really tight angle one? That was a great one as well, but there were so many. Joe, for you, which is the best?
There's plenty. Who can forget French Eddie? The goal that closed down the Broomlin Road stand. The 5-1 match. Michael Lustig scoring the Messi light, etc., etc. So there's tons of them. So let them have their glory. The greatest goal in the history of great goals. But we've got plenty to call on. For Larsson's was in 2000. The chip was in 2000. August 2000, I think the 30th of August 2000 in the 6-2 match, and there's been plenty more since. Nakamura's was a great goal against Griggsy, the greatest goalkeeper in the history of great goalkeepers. Sean Maloney belted one in from similar range in a midweek League Cup tie, etc., etc. There's tons of them. So, congratulations, Chermiti, another pointless trophy for Ibrox, like the summer transfer window trophy, the international break trophy, finishing second in the Florida Cup for tribute acts, etc., etc. Pill them up. But if we win at Aberdeen, we're ahead of them in the league. It's tragic that we've reduced ourselves to this rather than speculating over who we might be playing in the last 16 of the Champions League. But it is what it is. We've scored plenty of belters, and hopefully there's a few more. Hopefully there's a goal or two on Sunday to revel in. And again, when we host the final derby match of the season in the post.
Yeah, what about
Tom Roggett's goal? Oh my God, man!
And what about what's the goalie day in Tam?
Yep. Rogic scored a cracker at Ibrox and he landed in David Bates' ankle for extra impact. So, whatever criteria you want, we've got plenty of choices.
Yeah, well, mine is short and sweet. One that has a special place in my heart was Paul Lambert's screamer in 1998.
Last century, Eric.
Last century, but still, it's one that lives long in the memory. It was a fucking cracker of a goal, and it was the one that actually really turned the title race that season. When we were stopping the 10. So for that, it holds a special place in my heart. I'm not saying it's the best derby goal of all time. I would be inclined to agree with James in that score. I think that the Nakamura one is just spectacular. But Paul Lambert's screamer as well. That was, and I'll never forget the roar at Celtic Park for that one. It was just off the scale. It was a fantastic goal. So we'll wrap it up, guys. The final part of tonight's show will just be our predictions for Wednesday night. So I'll start with you, James. How do you think we're going to fare up with Tawdry? Always a tough venue to go to. Peter Levin hates us with a passion. We'll have his players kicking 7 different colours of shit out of us. How do you think we're going to fare?
I think we'll get kicked all out of the park, but I think we'll win 2-0.
Yeah. So 2-0 sounds good to me. What about you, Joe? What do you think?
We've got Nick Walsh as referee. Aberdeen got a cup tie at the weekend, which means more to them than kicking lumps out of Celtic. It would be pretty. It'd be nice if we scored before the 85th minute, but I reckon it'll be 2-0 or 2-1, and I'll grab that happily.
Yeah, I'd be pretty much thinking along the same lines. I'd be confident that we should win 2-0. I think that one of the probably key parts to that is that we kind of gel like we did in the second half at Ibrox. I think if we do that, Aberdeen won't be able to handle us. So I think Martin needs to kind of set things up the way he did in that second half. And I think he kind of maybe needs to look at the way he's going to use the impact subs. Maybe look to bring the Ox on in the second half, possibly in that game. But I do think 2-0 isn't beyond us, and I think that we can definitely get a result there based on the form that Aberdeen have been showing at the moment. They have not been playing well. So that wraps it up for this week, guys. As usual, everybody who watches us, like and subscribe. Give us plenty of comments afterwards on the YouTube page. And as always, thanks for your support. We'll be back again next Monday to have a deja vu and discuss a game at Ibrox and what happens there. And we won't go for, well, I suppose we better go for predictions there too, guys, because we won't be seeing each other until then. So how do we think the cup game is going to go? How do you think that's going to go, Joe?
I'll go for another 2-1. 2-1s, 2-1 at Aberdeen, 2-1 at Ibrox, and that will be happy days.
What about you, James?
Well, we show up for 90 minutes. It won't even be a contest because this guy is already cracking under pressure, and Martin will know exactly where to tap to bring the whole thing down. I expect Martin to have a few choice words this week.
Are you going to give us a number?
Send him off on another rant.
You're going to give us a number?
2-0.
2-0. Okay. Yeah, I go the same. I think we win a 2-0. So look, thanks again, guys, and we'll all reconvene next week. I'm sure we'll have plenty more to talk about. So looking forward to that one. Talk to you then, guys. Take it easy.